Okay, I call to order the meeting of Mayor and Council. I want to thank everybody for being here and those online. If you'll rise for the invocation by Councilman King.
All right, if we bow our heads, please. Heavenly Father, Lord Jesus, we thank you for this day that you've created. Lord, we just thank you for all the blessings that you have given to each and every one of us. Lord, be with us tonight and give us the much needed wisdom and knowledge to deal with the issues at hand, Lord. And Lord, just continue to be with our city, Lord, as well as our country. We need you now more than ever before, Lord. And at the end of the day, it's about you. We just give you all the praise and glory and honor that you deserve. We ask all these blessings in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Please remain standing for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May be seated. Okay, do we have any changes to tonight's agenda?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, all on council, you received our minutes from our last meeting on September 8th. If there are any questions or comments, I'll accept a motion to receive the minutes.
Councilman Henderson, I make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Councilman McCoy, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the case unanimous. All right, do we have any correspondence tonight?
Yes, sir, we have one letter from the Downtown Seaford Association, which we received today. Our city clerk received it. It is from Sarah Lee Thomas, the president of the Downtown Seaford Association, and it states, our Halloween parade, originally scheduled for Wednesday, October 28th, 2020, has been canceled. This decision came after much discussion during our monthly meeting held September 21st, 2020. We will not, due to the coronavirus, place anyone's health in danger. We are hopeful that our parade will resume on the Wednesday before Halloween in 2021.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Okay, tonight we have a 7:05 public hearing, and with respect to time, I want to ask that we jump ahead, council, and do a committee report, and we'll ask Councilman Henderson to work through his police and fire, and a couple minutes we have to stop, then we'll come back at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report is complete. It has been submitted. It will be abbreviated in the interest of time. President Matt Reed reports that an analysis of the Atlanta Road rental property is still ongoing. A review of the feasibility of repair and other options are under consideration. A coded audiovisual alert system is still being planned for installation throughout the facility to warn members of events and calls. The fire department is seeking to collaborate with the Seaford School District for youth recruitment for fire and EMS. Notes from Chief John Wilson's report: alarms to date as of 1200 hours, 21st of September. There are 549 fire and rescue calls, averaging 2.07 calls per day to date. EMS calls are at 2,367, averaging 8.9 calls per day to date. There were no significant fire calls to report during this period. All apparatus are in service. In the EMS department, new ambulance B87 specification has been approved or has been read for its capital expenditure, and second and final reading and vote is scheduled for tomorrow, September 23rd. There's a new employee hiring notice due to a resignation of one of the current employees, and firefighter EMT Samantha Lewis and firefighter EMT Brandon Bailey have both completed their probationary status, and they have become full-time employees. Moving on to police activity, you can see the crimes to date in your report. All crimes are 4,305, 2020 year-to-date versus 6,619 for the overall total for 2019. You'll go down to see the total number of complaints for the month or for the period at 261. And moving down through traffic complaints, there were a total of 326 traffic contacts and 68 citations during the period. There were no alcohol-related crashes, and there were no DUIs during the period. I'll give you, there's a list of significant events that you should be made aware of, but in the interest of time, I'll yield the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that, Councilman Henderson. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close our regular meeting and open up our public hearing, and I'll turn it over to our building official, Mike Bailey.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Evening.
We'll go over the first item on the public hearing tonight is for Bel Air Investments Llc. This is located at Danfield Drive, Bristol Drive, Chatham Drive, Trey Street, and Banbury Street. It encompasses tax map and parcel numbers 531-10.00-407.00 through 464.00. The zoning on those properties is R1, low-density residential, and they are requesting to rezone 51 single-family lots from R1, low-density residential, to R3, high-density residential, to accommodate the proposed building of 132 townhomes. This is an aerial shot of the area in question, outlined in red. It's within the Bel Air subdivision. Vacant lands currently, no utilities are ran to that property, and it's zoned for 51 single-family homes. And this is the plat we received from the applicant, highlighting in yellow the actual lots that they are proposing to rezone to R3, high-density residential. This does comply with the comprehensive plan land use map. That whole area is designated for residential, regardless of the zone. So if there's any questions, there are some gentlemen here representing the project. I'm not
Okay.
sure, would you like to come up and speak more on it?
I have a few things on that.
Let's ask council if they have any questions first, then we'll bring you up before we go to public, okay? Okay. Council, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, sir, I have some comments. Councilman Henderson, and some questions. I have a couple here, or let me say a few. I've written it down because I want to get it correct. I don't want to fly off the cuff. But the land being discussed tonight was annexed through a special election held on November 7th, 1988, by a vote of 272 for and 160 against. The public hearing held on October 11th, 1988, gave special emphasis to the R1 designation. The original developer stated single-family housing was much needed in Seaford. 32 years later, Seaford remains in a shortage of this type of building. An adjacent tract was annexed through a special election held on January 13th, 2000 by a vote of 12 for and 1 against. That tract is now known as Governor's Grant. We have an obligation to uphold the intent of the electorate that allowed this annexation to become a reality. As recently as February of 2020, the Economic Development Committee has met to discuss the incentivization of single-family dwellings in the city. So my question would be, if we're going to change the deal with the city of Seaford residents who voted for this, should there be a special election to change the deal accepted by the voters? It may be a rhetorical question, but I'll ask it. To the city manager.
Would you
Oh,
like
I'm
to?
sorry, I apologize. The way our zoning ordinance works and the way zoning changes occur, this body makes that decision. We don't take zoning changes out to the public for a referendum, if you will, or a vote on that. So that has not been done. We don't have a mechanism for that that's legal.
So we are the final arbiters
I'll say yes for the city process. Now, anyone who wants to appeal a decision that the council can make, there are processes for appeal that would get the state courts involved. So that could be a reality. In my time with the city, that has yet to happen. Typically, this is the final determiner of zoning ordinances, things of that nature.
Okay, I have two more, if you'll indulge me.
Sure.
By way of constituent complaints of increased volume and speeding along Magnolia Drive with the existing amount of development, an additional 81 units will only exacerbate existing traffic problems in Woodside Manor. That's an opinion of mine based on discussions with residents along Magnolia Drive, because Brighton Avenue or Brighton Drive is underutilized. Or maybe Magnolia Drive is overutilized. We can't know that for sure without a traffic study. But my final point in this would be that we have a current inventory of residential land in the city. Our R1 or low density zoned acreage is 103 acres plus or minus. If you take this, what is it, 7 acres? 7 plus or minus acres?
I'm sorry, I'd have to defer to the building official.
14, okay.
Thank you.
If you take this 14 off, that's almost, well, it's almost 14% of the total inventory of R1 land that's left in the city. We have 282 plus or minus acres of R2 medium density zoned acreage, which is not affected by this motion, but it tells you that, or by this hearing, but it tells you that there is an ample amount of R2 density available. There's 135 plus or minus acres of R3 that are unutilized at this time. So adding 14 acres adds almost another 10% to that number, which I believe sends this into out of balance. So I don't have many questions in there. They're just statements. And,
Sure.
I believe them to be factual based on my source material, which comes from the minutes of the regular meeting of the mayor and council dated October 11th, 1988, and a letter of recommendation by the annexation board dated September 9th, 1999, addressed to Mayor Short at the time.
Okay.
And I also had some source material from the zoning map and city administration. So I would like those to be submitted as fact, since the Planning and Zoning Commission was not allowed to inject opinion. They had to inject whether the actual this actual motion or this actual action would be legal. I don't think there's any question that it's legal. I just question whether it's appropriate.
Okay. Before we bring the developer up, is there any other questions from Councilman King?
Yeah, I have a couple. Is it possible to bring back the aerial view? Is it possible? Yep. So my question is around the zoning of the property, right? So originally the property is zoned R1. So we're here tonight from the builder asking to change to R3. So can we talk a little bit so I can get some clarity around R1, R3, why it was originally zoned R1? Can we have some conversation, get some clarity around that? Because if I understood you correctly, you said it was kind of, it doesn't really make a difference what is zoned.
Well, that's on the comprehensive plan land use map. That whole area is designated for residential. There's a mix of zonings out there. This is zoned R1, which is single-family homes only. Governor's Grant to the north is R2, which is also single-family homes only. Just to the east of this, there on the right-hand side of that photo is R3 currently, which is multifamily, townhomes, apartments, things like that. It's tighter density.
Yeah, let me try to answer the councilman's question this way. Councilman Henderson referred to when those lands each were annexed, and he made factual statements. Those two developments, Bel Air and Governor's Grant, both came in with two different zonings. R1, low-density residential, and R3, high-density residential. And it has stayed and remained that way from the original developer's request. So what happened, they made an initial request to bring that land into the city under certain zoning requirements, certain zoning caveats. That was reviewed and approved through our process at the time by the committee. It was vetted, then the council approved it, and the city accepted the request of the zoning of the developer at that time, and did not. It was in accordance with our comprehensive plan at the time. We have not approved or considered any changes since that time.
Well, I guess my question is the parameters, right? So what's the difference from an R2 property versus an R3 property or R1?
All right.
So what I'm asking, what's the difference? So what's the classifications or expectations for a property to be labeled?
All right, so the R1 is our lowest density district, and the lot sizes there have to be 7,500 square feet minimum, okay? So that yields you 4 to 5 dwelling units per acre. R2, a little smaller lot, 4,500 square feet, so you can get 8 or 9 units per acre out of R2, so you're getting a little more dense. Currently, the R3 zoning permits townhouses, and it allows 14 dwelling units per acre. So R1, 2, and 3, you kind of go up the scale in density. So that's the reasoning behind them. And you have different permitted uses. In an R1 zoning district, you can only build a single-family house. R2, you can build a single-family home or a duplex, detached or over-under duplex. R3, it's garden apartments, townhouses. So those are the permitted uses generally in those zones. Is that?
It does. And so just a follow-up. So with that being said, originally it's zoned to handle 51 single-family homes.
Correct.
So we're going to take that same piece of property and we're almost going to triple that, right? So is there any conversations or expectation about the infrastructure? Is the infrastructure different? Green space different?
Well, they have, on this plan, the plan on the next item shows some of that, but it's a sketch plan only. There's a lot of design that has to go into it.
A lot of those questions will be answered in the next item. The question before the council here on this, is this rezoning appropriate? You're kind of asking questions about the site plan development. Not to hold those questions off. We can certainly skip ahead to it if you desire to do that. But you'll get to see that picture when we get into that second item, and those details. Mike has a presentation about traffic, about green space, how the buildings are laid out, so on and so forth. That's in the sketch plan.
But when you look at the recommended motions, right? So we're asked to answer,
Sure.
before we have all the information, in my opinion. So that's why I think it's critical to have some of that conversation now. Because
Agreed.
when you look at the recommended motions, I think it's really clear for me that I make sure that I really understand what I'm voting on.
Well, and just a issue of process. Through the public hearing, we'll go through item 1 and 2, no vote, and we'll actually go through item 3 as well. But then we'll close the public hearing. You'll have all that information, all that background, be able to ask all those questions on all those items. Then we'll go into the regular meeting, and then the vote will occur.
Right.
So,
Right.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Any other questions from council? If not, I'll invite the developer up if you'd like to.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilman. Michael Stortini on behalf of the developer, 847 Cranbrook Drive, Wilmington, Delaware. A couple of things that I want to speak about. Planning and zoning 2 weeks ago unanimously approved our request to take these 51 singles to 132 townhouses. But they did ask us in our plan submission if, when we came to council, we would reduce the density. So we did. The plan that we brought tonight, there was no mechanism in your system to resubmit a plan. So we came here tonight with 116 units, not 132 units. So we revised the sketch plan. We also added some amenities. We added a pool, clubhouse, fitness center, and either pickleball or tennis court. So we took out some townhouses, we added some amenities. And, you know, Councilman Henderson kind of teed this up perfectly for me. This subdivision has been in distress since inception. For the past 13 years, this subdivision has been in distress. And what that tells you is the current zoning does not work. What we are proposing to do is change some of the single families to townhouses. And we are not tripling the density, we're only increasing the density of the entire subdivision by 12%. Additionally, what we are doing is we are adding amenities for the residents of Bel Air. All the residents of Bel Air.
Do you mind if I just interject quickly?
Please.
Okay. This piece of the public hearing is on the rezoning, all right?
Yes.
This body has to look at, once we rezone that, you're diving into what the development plan looks like. So what they have to, their decision, their consideration has to be, what is the maximum density permitted? Because that's what you could bring back, or another developer, if it picks it up, brings it back. Do you mind if when we get into the second item, that's when we talk about the amenities, the development of the site, could you kind of just, this piece of it, could you just kind of stick to the rezoning of the raw land, if you don't mind?
Yeah,
Please.
but I fully expected, and Mr. Anderson, with all due respect, I fully expected that if we got the rezoning, I thought perhaps it could be conditioned on the reduced density. So it was something for council to consider, that while we're asking for a rezoning, by right, if you rezone the property, us or another developer could come in and conceivably build 180 units. And we don't want to do that to the subdivision, because we represent developers that own the other 77 townhouses that are going to be built. So when you look at the rezoning, I would ask that it would be conditioned upon a restricted or lesser use than what would be allowed. And that's kind of why I got into that. And I don't know how to do that or what the mechanism is, but sure, yes, we're asking for a rezoning because we think it works in this area. Obviously, the current zoning does not work, or the subdivision would have been completed. And the development has been an eyesore. It needs to be completed. It needs to be, it sat like that. It's sat exactly like that for 13 years, and it needs to be completed. And that's why we're asking to rezone it, so it becomes economically feasible to redevelop the entire subdivision.
Thank you, Michael. All right, next we'll ask the public if they have any questions, and if some of you were here the night of planning and zoning, we're going to do this a little differently tonight. I will share with you that all of us have seen the planning and zoning meeting, so we have heard those questions there. If you want to restate that exact same question, if we feel that it needs to be repeated, that's fine. I'm not limiting you. I just want you to know we all have listened and saw that meeting and heard your concerns. So again, we're going to ask the same of you as we did of the developer. Any questions or concerns you have now are based on the rezoning from R1 to R3. So state your questions, concerns, anything about that, same as we asked the developer. I'll need you to state your name and address for the record, please, and Tracy will come around.
My name is Dawn Evans, 601 Rosemary Drive. The property that's there right now, it's a farm. It's not an eyesore. They grow corn, they grow soybean, they grow all that all year round. It's being used. And what he's not saying is our last meeting, these were all rental properties. Nobody's buying anything. They're not selling anything but falsehood.
Right.
It's all rental property. That's not fair to the people who bought in there. That's not fair to any of us. I live on Rosemary Drive. They're going to build 77 units that are rented. Mr. Anderson said, oh, the HOA will pay for cameras. They said they're not paying HOA.
Right,
So you're going to develop a farm and say it's an eyesore. I mean, be truthful.
Thank
You're
you.
all sitting here saying it's not, it's something that it's not.
Right.
You're going to make everybody that paid for their home live in a project neighborhood.
Thank you.
Okay. My name is Charlotte Wayne. My address is 315.
Charlotte, speak to us, please.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
And my address is 315 Plantation Drive. I live in Governor's Grant. The comment that the 51 single-family lots are not really amenable to being developed as such is completely untrue as the market stands today. Things have changed over the years. In fact, your company currently has on the market four single-family houses in Bel Air that you are either, you are advertising as you will build those. So you must think there's some doubt or you wouldn't be building them. Furthermore, all we have to do is look around what's happening in Governor's Grant, what's happening in Mayersfield. They can't even keep the houses in, okay, they cannot keep the houses in supply. One or two go up every day. There is a huge demand. Now, it is a buyer's market. There is not enough inventory of single-family houses. Your intent is not about the lack of market. It's that you have deemed that you have other purposes in mind. And you could there's no problem with selling single-family homes in today's market. And all you have to do is just superficially check the web out, and it'll tell you there is a major, major market for them.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else?
Hello, I'm Jerry Dorsey. I live on 134 Bel Air Drive. I've been here 3 months. My getting new to retirement life. Just want to read this statement that my wife and I put together. If this request is accepted for an additional 132 townhomes or less in a community that is already underserviced by the police department as one of our primary concerns, not to mention the fire services and the community activities for the citizens. If this request is accepted or approved by the City Council, we feel this decision will be a major dereliction of duties on your part to assist in maintaining a quality living environment for the existing neighborhood R1 low-density residential area. I wish both deciding parties, city planning, and council would sit face-to-face to discuss the rezoning situation instead of sending emails that contain sensitive feelings from the general public and council. This email situation is another potential flaw in true reading and understanding the feelings of everyone's concerned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Roxanne Knight. I live at 1139 Magnolia Drive. This is my first time at this meeting. I have a concern for the parking situation that may occur as a result of these homes going up. We already struggle now with parking, but I want to know what he would do in the line of dealing with the more density in the parking.
Okay, any other questions from the public? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Tom McLaughlin. I live at 815 Magnolia Drive, and I've lived there since 1973. So I've seen a lot go on in Magnolia and Woodside in the town of Seaford. My question to the council is, what is the city going to take from this? What's the upgrade? How is it going to affect you? Is it going to be good or is it going to be bad? And there's a lot of different things that can come in that preview. So, and my other question that I asked on the last meeting, planning and zoning, was who's going to pay for this? Is this going to be any chance of this becoming Section 8 or government subsidized? And if that's not so, fine, well and good. Those people are going to pay for it, fine. But if it's going to be government subsidized, you're looking at a whole different ball of wax. And those are my two questions.
Any other questions or comments from the public? Okay. Okay, Mike. Send the questions.
All right, so we're going to move on to public hearing item number 2. It's Bel Air Investments Llc, located Danfield Drive, Bristol Drive, Chatham Drive, Trey Street, and Banbury Street. Tax map and parcel 531-10.00-407.00 through 464.00. Proposed zoning is R3 high-density residential, and they're requesting a sketch plan review for 51 lots to be redeveloped into 132 townhomes. Same picture again, it's the same property there in Bel Air, highlighted in red. The next one is new. This is the sketch plan as we received it when they applied, showing the 132 townhomes. They're reconfiguring some of the streets in that area to accommodate them. Water and sewer will have to be extended into those properties. Stormwater, they do show an area for stormwater on site. That'll all have to be designed and worked out with the city and Sussex Conservation. And they will require new approvals from the Fire Marshal, Sussex Conservation, DelDOT, and the city engineer for the stormwater system. And if there's any questions.
Okay. This time I want to ask the developer to come up and explain. He might answer our questions before we ask.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask one question?
Sure.
So if I understood the comment you made earlier, that what you're presenting tonight is completely different than what you presented at planning and zoning?
16 less units at the request of planning and zoning. Okay? Is it appropriate, Mr. Mayor, to address some of the public comments at this time or no?
Why don't we, hopefully through your presentation, it'll answer them, but hopefully let's just present the plans you have and.
Okay. The plan that we have, the plan that we have reduced our plan from 132 to 116 units. And we are asking council, because we are building the first 77 units there, that if you do grant us the rezoning, you do restrict us to a maximum of 116 units. That helps protect our investment, which we're most interested in the other 77 townhouses that we're getting ready to invest in. To answer, I guess, the public's question, and 2 points there. When they talked about home values and the 77 units that are being constructed, they're being constructed at the top of the rental market. I brought pictures of what we're building. Those units appraised, those townhouse units appraised at $220,000 each as a rental unit. So they are high-end rentals. The community will have high-end amenities for all of the residents of Bel Air, not just the rental residents of Bel Air. And there was a question about surveillance and services. Between building the 77 units and these 116 units, we'll add 200 units in that area, which will promote more police presence. It will also enable all of the residents that live at Bel Air to participate in the community center, the fitness center, the pool. And then there was a question about parking. The proposal that we bring tonight has two off-street parking spaces per unit. In addition, I believe there'll be another 40 or so parking spaces provided in and around the community building for the neighborhood. And again, like I said before, this isn't a tripling or a doubling in this particular case of this one parcel. You have to look at Bel Air in a whole. We're only increasing the overall density of Bel Air 11%. And we're completing the project. It has sat there It may be a farm field, but it sat there undeveloped with unfinished homes for 13 years. If it could have been developed as that single-family residential community, it would have been. And unfortunately, with the cost of infrastructure today, it is not economically feasible to build single-family homes in this location. The price point simply doesn't allow it. And we want to finish this community, bring 200 residents in here, add amenities so folks do not have to go out on the highway. Right now, if you want to go to a gym, you want to go to a pool, you have to leave. Now you don't have to leave. So we would argue that traffic would not really be impacted by our community. And there's typically infill projects like this, folks are worried about home values. Infill projects like this typically raise the home value of everyone, not only the Bel Air community, but all surrounding communities. Home values will increase if you allow us to build this project. This project is financed for high-end rental units. And I can share with council the financing package. This is not low-end, it is not Section 8. It is designed to enhance this area, and an infill project like this is something that I think the council should embrace. Especially, there was a gentleman here who spoke earlier who said that he had lived in Bel Air for 3 months and they're underserved. Well, you're underserved because your community is not completed. The roads aren't finished. We need to get in there, finish the community, put nice units in there, and that's why you're underserved by police, fire, and all of that. And I understand the concerns of the neighboring communities. However, again, we're only increasing density by 11%. With the amenities that we're putting in Bel Air, we think will reduce traffic, and by building the type of units that we're going to build, we'll enhance your home values. We will not detract from your home values. And like I said, phase 1, the 77 townhouses that are going to be built, they're already financed, they're already appraised, and they're getting ready to go under construction. If we have that type of $15 million investment, we want this to be high-end as well. And we want it to match everything else in the area. That's my presentation.
All right, thank you. Any questions from council?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Councilman McCoy.
Comment, I guess. Comments. Okay.
Sure, comments or questions?
Councilman McCoy, and I want to do this as well as Councilman Henderson did, but just my opinion, the best part about being a council person is that we're able to have communications with the public, and people do reach out and talk to us about this. And everybody I spoke to has had concerns about this project. And a lot of concerns were spoke about tonight. I'm just not, personally, I'm just not in favor of anything that's going to, I guess, alarm such concerns for our residents. In my opinion, we've talked about development and redevelopment, and nobody wants to see more development in Seaford than I do. But it has to be the right kind of development for our residents and the kind of development that we're proud of, not the kind of development that's going to provide more concerns for residents. So, just my opinion, I'm just not going to be in favor of the motion as set.
Okay, this is, again, just comments right now. Any other comments from council?
Yeah, I just have one, if I could follow
Councilman
back up
King.
on. So we had a planning and zoning session once again, and there's a lot of things you're presenting tonight that weren't presented then. Right, so you're coming, even the motions aren't reflective of the changes that you're making, right? So that concerns me.
Well,
I'm gonna just put that out there, that, you know, that concerns me, is tonight we're looking at, you're having a completely different conversation or talking about doing some things differently than the motion that I'm even looking at.
on the recommendation of your planning commission. I mean, I could have came back in here with 132 units, but Town of Seaford Planning Commission asked us to reduce density. You did not have a mechanism for me to submit a revised site plan, and we wanted to get this heard tonight because we thought it was important. So on the recommendation of the Town of Seaford's Planning Commission, we came in here tonight and reduced density on their recommendation.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, but as a
Thank you.
councilman, me looking at that, reading that, preparing my thought and how I'm gonna lean, looking into that, this is what I'm looking at. And what you're telling me that is not reflective in any motion that I'm looking at tonight. So none of what you're stating tonight has been communicated to me before tonight's meeting.
I don't know how I would have done that.
So, all right.
Any other questions or comments from council? If not, we'll take questions or comments from the public. If you'll raise your hand, Tracy will come to you. And again, this is based on the sketch plan or any questions you have about what has been presented.
Okay. Dawn
Name?
Evans, 601 Rosemary Drive.
Thank you.
I want to find out, if those are the townhouses they plan on building, the townhouses I live in are 3 stories with a garage and a driveway, which gives you a parking space and a spot for your car. I want to know how these 77 units are going to fit in with our townhouses that are already there. And then I don't really care about a pool or a rec center. What I care about is my neighborhood. If you're going to rent them, people aren't going to take pride in their ownership. We already see that with some of the renters we have. So if you're gonna go ahead and just rent these 2-story units, and you're telling us they're high end, once he's gone, what do we have? What recourse do we have for living here? I left Frederick County to come here. We rode here for weeks on end, looking for a nice family neighborhood. We lived there 5 years. We fixed, did a lot of work. He knows how many times we've been a pain in his butt. But you have to take pride where you live. Once they develop and they're gone, a pool and a rec center is supposed to make it all good for rental property. What about the 3-story rent that we live in, that we paid, and you got no garage, no parking, you're gonna put some brush and give us a pool and call it a day. And as far as undeveloped streets, the streets are all streets. They just don't have signs on them. But it's a neighborhood, and I want to leave it like a neighborhood. That doesn't even go with what we have now. And that's what he always said, it had to be the same type of units going in. Bel Air, where he lives, it was always the same style of house, and then they changed. They made 1 2-story house. It looks nice, but when other people asked to add on to their house, they got told no. Now it's a different story. So it has to be the same for everybody. If you're going to do it right, do it the right way, where they have a driveway, they have a garage. Where are these kids going to play in a 2-level house? You're going to give them some playground? That ain't enough. You know, kids want to go to a basement. They don't always want to sit in their room.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Council.
Good evening, Steve.
I just got a couple concerns and a couple questions. Question for the gentleman that just spoke. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Steve Mayer. I'm at 8 Chesapeake Drive in Governor's Grant. Actually, I back up to Bel Air, and I have a great concern of what's going to go behind me. And what I had an issue with that you stated that, and the gentleman beside me said that we were understaffed, with our police protection and so forth going through it. You made a comment about our fire protection. I don't think our fire protection is lacking anything, for one thing. But if you have concern about that, why would you want to build there? You know what I mean? So that's a good question I want to ask, but you don't have to answer. Can I go to the overview map?
Sure.
Can I go to the last one? Yeah. All right. Is this the only partial that we're talking about now?
That's correct.
Because at planning and zoning, we were talking about the tree area also.
No, sir. You got off track. Yeah, we're only talking about what you see in the red.
Okay, well, in planning and zoning, we talked about the roads going through, all the way through to.
Mr. Mayor is correct. Just the piece that's just to the north of that red line area. Mike, could you just hover over? That is the R3 piece that currently exists in Governor's Grant, right there. We did talk about that, Mr. Mayor. You're correct, because we got into a discussion about how the roads would interconnect.
That's correct.
And there was, I think the whole discussion there was explaining what was there, how it was going to develop over time, but that is not subject to anything the council's looking at tonight.
Okay, so, but that part is owned by the same Bel Air
No,
LLC?
no, they own the piece that is just to the, it would be the east, right there. Thank you, Michael.
Okay, so maybe I thought that was owned, because it was for sale at one time, and now it's not.
Yeah, I don't know. I believe it still is, but it's still the same owner that has owned it for
Okay.
probably
My-
15, 20 years.
My mistake, but
It's okay.
I got off track the last meeting because I was told that was all going, we brought up Bethany and Chapman Drive, coming all the way through to Bel Air Development and adding on, and that's what I was getting to about maybe traffic going through Governor's Grant. That was all mentioned.
Connect up though, right?
They're planned to connect.
Right,
Yes, sir.
that is, but that's not part of the discussion tonight, but yeah,
Okay,
eventually they
I
are going to
understand.
connect
No,
up.
I understand that. I just, that's why I wanted to clarify that, we were talking just about that area.
It's not listed, it's expired right now.
It's expired listing, okay.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you.
Scott Pickenpole, 510 Elm Drive. I was here for the planning and zoning meeting because I am on planning and zoning, but tonight I'm able to just give an opinion and one statement. So we never made, from a legal standpoint, yes, we understand what the legalities are here. We understand that. From a moral standpoint, what do you do? I'm not going to get into that part. We're going to let the council decide that. I want to understand where initially we were told by the developer these are going to be market-based value homes, not high-end. It was just market-based value. So I mean, what does that term mean? Does that mean, I just want an explanation for that part, the market-based value.
Do you want to answer that, Michael? Go up to the, you can go up to the mic just.
Yeah, thank you. That was just to clarify that these are not going to be Section 8, that they're going to be brand-new rental properties. They will command the highest rents in Seaford. And it's important to note as well, we're also affiliated with the folks that own Stony Brook Apartments. Stony Brook Apartments, and you talk about pride of ownership, Stony Brook Apartments are in the town of Seaford. We're affiliated with the ownership of Stony Brook Apartments. Stony Brook has undergone this year, and the complex is less than 8 years old, $1 million beautification project. So we're the type of developers that build, own, and maintain. And when I say high end, I mean the top of the market. I don't mean middle of the market, and I wanted to make a differentiation. And not that there's anything wrong with Section 8 or any of that, but these will be full market rate and price per square foot at the top of the market in this town.
Thank you. Any other questions? Tracy, there's one in the back. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm Cynthia Cummings, and I live at 25 Crossgate Drive. Someone said something about the police protection. Do we have enough police protection to take care of that many people?
Front. Trace.
Two comments.
Name and address again,
Charlotte
please.
Green, 315 Plantation Drive. Looking at the plans that I've seen, the driveways,
Raise your mic.
the two-car driveways are a joke. There's no way. With the size of today's cars, and given that people now seem to be very fond of pickup trucks and SUVs, the most you're going to get is one car there.
Okay.
So you already see a problem in the existing homes. Where is all this space going to suddenly appear to accommodate the parking? Furthermore, appraisals, who's doing the appraisal? It's kind of like when you go to an attorney, who's keeping charge of the clock? $225,000 will buy you a rancher in Governor's Grant. To tell me that that is the value of a townhouse in Bel Air is ridiculous. And, you know, this thing, all of a sudden, everybody's going to stay inside. Well, I think people are tired of staying inside. You know, they're not going to have any need because they're going to have Shangri-La right there in the development.
Okay.
I
Gotcha.
mean, it's a joke. Okay, enough for me, but
Thank you.
I just want to make that very clear.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay,
Yes,
please.
thank you.
Okay, just for the record, for the minutes, I did want to read in an email that we received. And this email is from Charlotte P. Wayne. She lives at 315 Plantation Drive. It was received today at 10:37 a.m. She attached an eye-opening snapshot of where the city of Seaford is now and what it portends for our future if we fail to recognize that the current planning and zoning process virtually ensures a failed, poverty-stricken, crime-ridden city. Not unlikely the legions of those we see on TV every day. A strong middle class, or a plethora of multimillionaires, is an essential ingredient in creating a viable, successful city. Running the elastic out in droves by placing an insufferable tax burden and inferior quality of living on them to subsidize a total disproportionate multitude of lower income residents is the picture I am left with for our future after attending the 9/10 P&Z rezoning meeting. I have quite a few questions that I will be submitting, which she does submit, today for your review, consideration, and hopefully a verbal response from you this evening, assuming you deem them worthy of your time. She appreciates the opportunity and mechanism you have provided to express her views. So she provided a snapshot. Number one was housing. Number of rental households. In Seaford, there's currently 49.1%. In Sussex County, she states there is 21.8%. In the state of Delaware, she states there is 29.9%. She adds a note that Seaford has at least 13 large Section 8 apartment complexes, and she adds that there may be more since the last time she checked. With proposed R3 rezoning, the city would be adding 313 more rental units and 748 low-income residents with 2.39 individuals per unit to the staggering existing rental inventory. Ms. Wayne goes on to number two, which is poverty rates. Seaford, she has at 20.4%, Sussex County at 12.3%, and Delaware at 11.3%. And she makes a note that Mississippi, the state with the highest poverty rate, stands at 19.7%, less than Seaford, which she notes at 20.4%. Based on the above, Ms. Wayne approximates that 1,632 residents are at or below the poverty level. If 748 low-income renters are added to the existing poverty level population, for example, 748 plus 1,600 equals 2,348, Seaford's low-income resident will, at a minimum, constitute 29.34% of Seaford's total population of around 8,000. The 29.4 rate cited above is described as a minimal because census figures are only available for those at or below the income poverty level, which is 20.4%, leaving out those who exceed that level but are still considered low income. Then Ms. Wayne goes on to share the median household income. Seaford, she has at $46,387. Sussex County at $60,853, and the state of Delaware at $65,627. Ms. Wayne goes on to state the crime rates per thousand. For the city of Seaford, violent, she has at 8.14, property at 53.43, for a total of 61.59. For the state of Delaware, for violent, she has 4.24, for property, she has 23.24, for a total of 27.48. Ms. Wayne notes that Seaford is ranked as the most dangerous city in Delaware, followed by number 2, which is the city of Wilmington. 98% of all cities in the U.S. are safer than Seaford, unable to quickly obtain lowest rates for Sussex County. Seaford is consistently voted as one of the least desirable cities, small cities to live in Delaware, and she cites that her source of the data is the U.S. Census Bureau reported issued in 2018. And again, this was submitted by Ms. Charlotte Wayne, who resides at 315 Plantation Drive. We received one more email, another email from our email address from Ms. Wayne, who resides at 315 Plantation Drive. We received that today, September 22nd at 2:01 p.m. Attached, the attachment is an attempt to gain some insight into how the city makes zoning decisions. Most Governor Grant's residents left the 9/10 meeting with the understanding that the R3 zoning is approved if it meets all Seaford's technical requirements. For example, size of dwelling, distance between dwelling, front footage, etc. Many of us previously lived in cities where serious consideration was given to many, if not most, of the factors addressed in the attached. We are hopeful you can enlighten us on this topic at tonight's meeting. Sincerely, Charlotte P. Wayne, resident Governor's Grant. Then she submits a list of questions for city government and the city council. The petitioner, Bel Air Investments Llc, is requesting the R3 zoning to build townhomes, claiming there is no market for single-family homes. It is notable that said petitioner is currently offering 4 single-family homes to be built on Bel Air Drive and Magnolia Drive in the Bel Air community as follows: 121 Bel Air Drive for $235,000, 131 Bel Air Drive for $235,000, 133 Bel Air Drive for $264,500, 1005 Magnolia Drive for $264,500. Having observed the local housing market rather closely, there are more single-family home buyers than sellers. To illustrate, Governor's Grant houses have recently been snapped up within a day or two, until, of course, the sword of Damocles dropped. New single-family homes are going like hotcakes in Mearsfield, right here in Seaford. A new single house or two goes up there practically every day. They vary in size considerably, with even their Victorian model with what appears to have a roof height of only 7 feet above ground selling better than one would have expected. It is in the long-term best interest of the city to approve the building of the 313 additional rental units when we already have a higher proportion than any city or county or state. If yes, please elaborate. I'm sure we far exceed the federal/state quotas for rental and low-income housing. And she notes that she got the 313 numbers because she assumes all proposed rentals are built. Does the city benefit long-term from adding 748 low-income residents when Seaford already has a higher poverty rate than any state in the United States? Won't these low-income populations require more city resources than produce? Are not the crime rates higher among the populations that will occupy the proposed rentals? We already know number one in crime. How can we do any better? How can the dearth of existing middle-income taxpayers absorb the cost of the innumerable services, goods the government mandates we provide to this massive low-income population? How will current middle-income homeowners respond to such a mandate? Can you not see them scurrying like rats from a sinking ship in search of places more favorable to their pocketbooks and living environment? Of the remaining residents, who will be left behind? Answer: mostly the young who have little to no equity in their homes, who will then likely declare bankruptcy as they did in Seaford during the mid-200 housing crisis. Just watch for the for sale signs go up as they have already on my street. Despite the city's goal of increasing the number of single-family homes, who will even consider buying or constructing a single-family home in Seaford if there were undeveloped lots adjoining it on any side, especially after witnessing the city rezone R1 lots to R3 after Governor's Grant was nearly completed? What do you think is going to happen to the desirable demand and value of Governor's Grant single-family homes when it's impacted by the overflow of traffic and people from vastly overcrowded townhomes and apartments? Will the community look just like the many old, dilapidated eyesores that now proliferate Seaford? Does the city at any point take into account any of the following in the zoning decision-making process? The impact on traffic and safety, the cost of making changes to meet specified standards, whether sufficient school facilities, teaching staff, transportation, and other school resources exist, and the cost of providing them where necessary, the adequacy of existing medical facilities providers. At present, it's often difficult to secure an appointment with a local provider. scheduling an appointment months in advance. The impact on the financial viability, sustainability of medical facilities providers with addition of a high percentage of non-payers or Medicaid payers, the latter often paying considerably less than actual cost. And Ms. Wayne notes that many local hospitals have been forced to fold due to a high proportion of patients who fall in this category. How will this impact fire emergency service providers and the cost of increasing personnel, additional equipment, or facilities to accommodate newcomers where needed? Same goes for police, and on and on. With regard to additional service and personnel to accommodate the new dwellers. And once again, that is a statement that was submitted by Ms. Charlotte Wayne, who resides at 315 Plantation Drive.
Okay, thank you. Did you have a question? Tracy, can you run it to the back left, please?
Janice Foster, Governor's Grant. And after that long, detailed, wonderful report from Ms. Charlotte Wayne, I think she should run for city council next time. She knows a lot that's going on. I almost forgot what my questions were going to be after listening. Our representative, or the representative from Bel Air, had stated several times that it's only going to increase the density by 17%. I believe that's what he said. No? Whatever it was, he said it would reduce traffic but if you can't reduce traffic if you're increasing an area by 200 people living in there. And I think my question basically is, since I live in Governor's Grant and not directly affected right now, but I will be, where is the entrance and exits going to be in this development? And is it going to affect how that the traffic, if they should decide that they want to go up to, get out on Atlanta Road and then go up to Walmart, are they going to take shortcuts through Governor's Grant? And how can we put a stop to that? Because we don't want that in Governor's Grant.
We can certainly try. Mike, would you go back to the site plan that's been presented to us? Okay, so that's kind of hard to see, okay? But Mike, would you just show how the road network is proposed for this piece of the development?
So currently, this portion of the development will only stay on this site. These roads will end at the property line here, and these roads connect those two. On the original plan, this road would continue on into Governor's Grant.
It's Chatham.
Chatham Drive, yes.
That is Chatham.
Would continue on into Governor's Grant and connect to Plantation. But that other portion of Governor's Grant would have to be developed as well for that to happen. He has to build his portion of that road. These gentlemen are only responsible for what's on their property. I'm sorry, I'm not speaking into the mic.
It's okay. Thank you, Michael.
So their exit will be where, Mike? Where will they exit that development was the question.
This development will exit onto Bel Air Drive and either go down Magnolia or straight out to Atlanta Road, as it currently is now.
Okay.
200 cars.
Right. Okay. Are there any other questions from the public? Okay. Did any questions come in online since this is a public hearing? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Next, we'll go on to item number 3.
Could you rotate that, please? So could you rotate that picture over here so I can see it as well?
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is an annexation request from Mr. Saipan Shah for annexation of Sussex County Tax Map and parcel number 331-3, parcel 180, and it is located at 22512 Sussex Highway, better known as the Sunrise Motel. We do have to have a public hearing this evening as part of our annexation process. This property has been in annexation for several months now. We did receive the request for annexation from the property owner on June 15th of 2020. It has been going through the process. For the record, I'd like to add that on August 13th, a annexation report was submitted by the annexation committee, and that annexation committee was chaired by Councilman Henderson. And it was also, members of the council that were on that committee were Councilman Orlando Holland and Councilman Matt McCoy. That annexation report is in your package tonight, and it was read into the record on August 25th and accepted by City Council. Just to talk about the location, that is the existing Sunrise Motel that is there on Sussex Highway. Just a picture of it from Google Earth. It is existing. There are some proposals from the existing property owner to potentially redevelop portions of the site. So his desire, as stated on the annexation request, is to receive city utilities for the property. A little faded, but this is the Sussex County Tax Map. It's a relatively small parcel, 1.64 acres, existing with frontage on Sussex Highway. Just the city zoning map, you'll see the subject parcel there. It is contiguous to the existing city limits by virtue of the fact that existing annexed lands are directly across Sussex Highway to the east. They are requesting with this annexation C2 highway commercial zoning, which is across the street, and it is in accordance, that dotted ellipse that you can see there that runs along Sussex Highway in our comprehensive plan is noted to be commercial. So it is in a conformance with our zoning map and our annexation comprehensive land use plan. Unless potentially any of the Councilman, Chairman Henderson, or any of the other members of the annexation committee would like to add anything, this is the public hearing on that. I guess I just will add one last thing. Should council decide to move forward, then on the next council meeting, there would be a resolution for annexation. So we're just about at the last step of the process for this parcel.
All right, are there any questions from council?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Henderson.
Councilman Henderson speaking. As the chair of the annexation committee, as I noted in the meeting in August, that this property has undergone hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment. I hope that you all had a chance to go and look at the property. This owner has made a good faith investment in the existing property and intends to add to it if annexed. So that was some of the basis of, and I'll take any input from the other members of the committee, but I think that formed some of the basis of our approval to move forward, a recommendation for council to take it up.
Okay, if there's no other questions or comments from council, are there any questions or comments from the public? Okay, all right. Are we closing? Yep, close our public hearing and reopen our regular meeting.
All right, so we'll go back to public hearing item number 1. These are the findings of facts. The project is for Bel Air Investments Llc, located on Danfield Drive, Bristol Drive, Chatham Drive, Trey Street, and Banbury Street. Tax map and parcel 531-10.00, -407.00 through 464.00. Zoning is R1 low density residential, and they're requesting to rezone 51 single-family lots from R1 low density residential to R3 high density residential to accommodate the proposed building of 132 townhomes. Planning and zoning did make a favorable recommendation to council on the rezoning at their last meeting.
Okay, I'll accept a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I'll yield to Councilman McCoy.
I guess I have more of a point of order. If the council does move forward and approve the motion for rezoning, then we would move on to a secondary motion. If it is denied, we do not move on to a secondary motion.
That's correct.
I guess a question, just so I'm clear, when you talk about the secondary motion, the second item on the public hearing agenda,
yes.
My suggestion would be, depending upon, if you go forward and you approve, obviously you would go to the second item and you would consider that for that. If you go to the first one and you deny, my suggestion would be to go on and address the second item as well. So the record is straight and there's no issue with that should this be challenged.
I appreciate the clarification.
Yes, sir,
Okay.
thank you.
Clear. All right, with that, I'll accept the motion.
I have an additional
Yes.
question, sir. Mike, could you move back to the previous slide?
Yes, sir.
I was a witness to the Planning and Zoning meeting, and the Planning and Zoning Commission issued a caveat, which is not listed on this sheet.
It's listed on
That's on the second
number
item.
2.
She made that comment on the second.
Not on the first.
Right. How about this, unless you just indulge a little bit, would you mind just going forward and just reading that portion that's in that slide that you have, just so that the councilman's clear where it's at and what was stated? Go on to the next one, Mike, your findings of fact, yeah. Would you just read into the record?
Yeah, so Commission Member Stacy Spicer did state that an increase in homes from the originally proposed 51 single-family homes to 132 townhomes is a large increase, and she would like the integrity of the homes and surrounding areas to be considered.
Is that the comment you
Thank
recall,
you.
Councilman?
Yes.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, with that, I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, in light of the facts that have been presented by Planning and Zoning Commission and the additional facts presented tonight, I would like to amend or change this motion. I hereby make a motion to deny the request of Bel Air Investments Llc to rezone 51 single-family lots from an R1 low-density residential zoning to R3 high-density residential zoning, tax map and parcel number 531-10-407.00 through 464.00 to accommodate the proposed building of 132 townhome units as they presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman McCoy, I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. Are there any questions to the motion? Jessica, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Yes, based on the findings of these facts.
Councilman Holland?
Yes, based on the findings of these facts.
Councilman McCoy?
Yes.
Councilman King?
Yes, based on the finding of facts.
Okay, so that's unanimous. Okay, so let's move on to number 2 for the record.
So public hearing item number 2, findings of facts project is Bel Air Investments Llc. Location is Danfield Drive, Bristol Drive, Chatham Drive, Trey Street, Banbury Street. Tax map and parcel numbers 531-10.00, -407.00 through 464.00. The proposed zoning was R3 high-density residential, and they are proposing to redevelop 51 existing single-family lots into 132 townhomes. Water and sewer to be extended into the property, stormwater to be provided on site, and will require new approvals from the State Fire Marshal, Sussex Conservation, DelDOT, City Engineer for the stormwater. And Planning and Zoning did make a favorable recommendation to Council with the additional statement from Commission Member Stacy Spicer that the increase in homes from the originally proposed 51 single-family homes to 132 townhomes is a large increase, and she would like the integrity of the homes and surrounding areas to be considered.
Okay. Okay, I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman McCoy, I'll make the motion to deny the request of Bel Air Investments LLC for a sketch site plan review for 51 lots to be redeveloped into 132 townhome units to be built on tax map and parcel 531-10.00-407.00 through 464.00 as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Mr. Mayor?
I yield to you, James.
Councilman King, I second that denial.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions to the motion? If If not, Jessica, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Santos?
Aye, based on findings of facts.
Councilman Henderson?
Yes, based on the findings of these facts.
Councilman Holland?
Yes, based on the findings of these facts.
Councilman McCoy?
Yes.
Councilman King?
Yes, based on the finding of
Okay.
facts.
It's unanimous. Okay, thank you. And finally, the final piece? Oh, we're not voting on,
No.
We're not doing
Well,
that.
we do have a motion, yes. If you would not mind going on to that.
okay, so council will need a motion on accepting the annexation for the Sunrise Motel.
Mr. Mayor, I make the motion to proceed annexation request from Sapan Shah for annexation of Sussex County Tax Map and Parcel 331-300.180.00 Sussex Highway, Sunrise Motel, Seaford, Delaware, 19973, to present the ordinance for annexation at the October 13 City Council meeting for consideration.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Councilman Santos, I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions to this motion? If not, Jessica, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Santos?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Yes, based on findings of facts.
Councilman Holland?
Yes, based on findings of facts.
Councilman McCoy?
Yes.
Councilman King?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to new business. If some of you, I know you came here for the public hearing, I'll give you some time. If you're more than welcome to stay. It gets really exciting, right? Okay.
Thanks for coming out.
Need some water, brother.
Thank you, Mike. No, but that was, thank you. That was a lot.
Yes, it was, buddy. Good job.
Okay, Mr. Charles, you're getting ready to be teed up? Is that right?
18.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get, right. Guys, we're still on. All right, so glad to have you guys here.
Good evening. My name is Betha Rojas from the HELP Initiative.
Evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here to present what we're all about. All right, so what we were here to present is the Seaford Lights On program, Phase 2. We started last year with Phase 1, and now we're here to hopefully start Phase 2. We did, for the people that doesn't know about the HELP initiative and the Lights On program, what we did is we worked with the City Council and the police department to identify a specific target area for us to go ahead and install LED light bulbs that turn on at night. They're dusk to dawn. So if you leave the light switch on, you turn them on at night, and they will turn on at night and turn off during the day. So it will help people not leaving the light on all night long or all day long. That brings a lot of criminals knowing that the light is on. Of course, they know that no one is there during the day if the light is on. So what we do is we go in and hang door hangers, door by door, in a specific target area, giving them 48 hours to read what's in the door hanger. From them reading the door hangers, it gives them information about what we hear and what we're trying to do to help them. And it also has the City of Seaford's number, so they can contact City of Seaford to know that we're here and that we're part of Seaford as well. Also, it helps reduce the utility for customers because it's only 8 watts. It's very low wattage, which is very helpful as well. And also it helps them build trust to the community by having all the communities having their light on and know that a lot of people is in with this. So the phase one, we first did a briefing, of course, and then we did a MOU with the city of Seaford. We did a pre-launch as well, and then the target area, which is this Zone 1 and Zone 2. We first started with Zone 1, which is the 5th Street, 2nd Street, 3rd Street area, and then we did Zone 2, which is the 3rd North area. In this phase one, we installed 404 lights, and that gave a total saving of 22,579 wattage for the city of Seaford for just the light bulb. So this actually shows where we actually were able to install the lights in Seaford. The green ones are the single-family homes. The yellow are the multifamily, and the orange is vacant properties. This is a bigger view of the areas where we were able to install. We're also working with Healthy Homes. Healthy Homes, there's over 28 factors of healthy homes, like damp mold, excess cold, crowding space, entry, and this is all part of Healthy Homes, which will be incorporated in one of the programs that we will be working with, and also weatherization, which Charlie will speak a little bit more of. So for the vacant properties, we did in Seaford, we did a total of 43 vacant properties. We installed solar lights. Since there's no electricity, we motion censored. So they charge by solar light with a light, and then at nighttime when someone passes, it turns on for a minute or so, and then it turns off. So it gives them that bright so people won't enter the properties. The phase 2 program, which Charlie is going to talk about, are the different programs that we have, which is the heating repair replacement, the health on, weatherization, and other programs that we will discuss a little bit later as well. With the heat and repair replacement, we're able to go into a home that is owned by the property. Landlords are not permitted. It's just people that own their property. We're able to go, and if they qualify, we can replace their heating unit for free. For the health on is the Healthy Homes, which is the different mold, any cold air, any trips and falls. We can also access the home and see if those issues are there, and we can help them, give them any recommendations for fixing. Weatherization Assistance Program, we're also partners with ECA. We are granted for us to do the applications for them and approve anyone who needed a weatherization, and that's also for landlords as well. So you don't have to own the properties for us to do the work. Now this is the most important part, which Charlie's going to talk about. The most important part.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
You have a question?
Yes, I do. Could you repeat your name?
My name is Betha Rojas.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr.
Thank
Mayor, I
you.
have one as well,
Yes, sir.
if you don't mind. First of all, good job with the presentation.
Thank you. I'll try and go fast.
No, you're good. It's exciting.
Speed
So,
up.
looking at the reduction in kilowatt, so as a resident in phase 1, what is some of the feedback that you're getting from residents? They would have to, I could imagine, if you knocked on my door and were implementing these programs, I would be ecstatic. But can you share some of
Yeah,
those?
so
Okay.
actually because of COVID, we started to do a call campaign. We were funded by Energize Delaware. So we were able to call all the residents that we had in Seaford that we installed and talk to them about the COVID and other programs that were able to help them And when we called Seaford, we had some of them say that it's helped them a lot because their electricity has lowered, and their safety, they feel safe. Because when it's dark outside, no one wants to go outside. Everybody wants to stay inside. So with this light being on and they're not wasting a lot of energy, they're wanting to leave the light on, and they know that they're saving energy anyway if the light is on. So it helps them with public safety.
And that's really important. That's good to hear, because I know you had at your mission statement at the first meeting, you said, hey, these are our goals. We want to do this.
Yes.
And so I was anxious to see as a resident.
So we accomplished it.
Yeah, absolutely. So congratulations. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions before Charlie? Yes.
Yeah, if someone wants that light installed in their home and they don't have it right now, and it's in those target areas, who can they reach out to, or is that something you guys are no longer doing this?
No, we are still doing it. Right now, we're working with landlords and multifamilies, but if it's necessary, we do. They can contact City of Seaford, or my contact information is going to be at the end of this slideshow, and then we'll go ahead and install the light for them. It doesn't have to be in this specific target area. It could be anywhere Seaford that they need the light because they feel that they need some extra protection. And we also, if they don't have any lights, some houses here don't have lights in the front, so we will install a solar light for them.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Do we do a drum roll, or?
That's going to be a tough act to follow.
I know.
So the last time, so Mayor, Council, thank you for making some time. So last time we were a small group of maybe 4, and now we're at 11.
Wow.
And it's important for Ms. Rojas to be able to get up and do this kind of public speaking things, because, you know, that's our future. And then Jean Dallahan is our marketing manager. And this young lady actually lives in your city, and she's a communications coordinator, Mallory Bennett. So we're blessed. So we've done a really amazing thing with a simple light bulb. And we've always tried to convey this. Don't over-engineer these problems. I mean, it's real simple. But it just takes a lot of hard work going door to door in some really tough neighborhoods. I just came from Edgemore Gardens up in Wilmington. There are 2 homicides in 4 weeks there. And so there's a lot of dissension out there on the streets, and for a lot of different reasons based on this new normal we're going through. But what we found is by being able to demonstrate the reaction that we're getting from at street level, and then be able to analytically put it into a format that really is understandable. So we briefed the Attorney General. We've worked closely with chiefs of police, including Chief Kraft, who's awesome. When we have maps where we can actually take that data and layer it down so that we're showing not just crime and how the heat maps move, but also we're showing utility consumption and how a high area of high energy consumption can then be reduced by going in with the very first step, knocking on the door, and doing a light on the outside porch. Leads us inside the house to be able to do what we're funded to do now with home energy checkups. Now we're also able to do a heating repair and replacement assessment to see if their heater's working that doesn't need to be repaired or replaced. We're also being funded now to do weatherization. So we can go in and we can bring in auditors after we do an initial assessment as to what exactly they need in health and safety, as well as weatherizing the building envelope of that house. That's the crown jewel of low-income weatherization programs in this state. So right now we're contracted to do Kent and Sussex County, but we'd really love to be able to do the entire state. So why is that important to us? Because we meet and build a trustworthy relationship of a client in tough communities, and from that moment of truth, we then able to qualify them and bring them into a pipeline and bring them into these programs. All right, so all that being said, that light bulb in the phase 1 initiative here, we identified health and safety issues, 29 hazards. We identified smoke detectors and low batteries. Now we have the funding to actually do something about it, as opposed to just refer. So now we've become a much more holistic organization to go in and do multiple things, one visit. And that's the key in these communities that we're in. Not to do repetitive visits, not to ask people to bring boxes of information to multiple locations to make sure that they're eligible. So we're working very closely with my partner, Harold Stafford, who's here virtually, is to be able to work with the state service centers and to be able to work with the local council and get things done that way. So the reason for being here is this MOU, and in the MOU, there's no cost to the city, but it's extremely important that we have some form of in-kind resources that we can lean on the city for. This man, awesome. Right? In terms of code enforcement and being able to go out and identify those vacant properties, but also understand which houses are really the energy inefficient homes and people are really struggling in those homes. In the lobby, Mr. Dallahan, seeing the disconnects and being able to do everything we can to get into that house to find out what the problem is and remediate the problem. Right. Not just come up with payments to offset the expense of this stuff, correct the problem. Right? Yeah. On the health side, we have funding. We have funding from Health and Social Services as part of the heating repair and replacement program. It's called Assurance 16, to be able to go in and remediate, I don't know how many homes, but it's quite a bit of money. Trips and falls, indoor air quality, pest infestation, I mean, really bad stuff, asthma-related issues, right? Try and get rid of the readmissions to the emergency room. And so I think I covered it all, right? Weatherization, heating, the lighting. But it always starts with the light bulb. Yeah. And it's kind of interesting. We started with the light bulb, we're going to end with that light bulb. So, wow. so the real ask here is, you know, of all the things we've got up on that list, is we need to lean on the city, right? So we're working with 4, by the way. This is the primary blueprint city for us. Right?
Amen.
We love the city.
Amen.
We love the blue.
Yep.
Right? But what comes from here will be built out of Georgetown, Milford, and Dover. Those are the 4 that we want to bring this sort of holistic approach of getting these services delivered into these communities of the need.
Well, you certainly have impressed this community with lights on and certainly gained the trust. And so I know this council supports everything you do. So with that, if there's no questions, I'll accept a motion.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Councilman.
Hold on, we have a question.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you for all you do, Mr. Kistler. I'd like to understand, are you following the pattern of the same zones to do this in, or is it citywide?
No, so good question. Citywide. Right, so we've done a zone 1 to the question of having people who have a need for these lights, we'll go to those people. If there's any kind of criminal activity where something happens, we'll be there the next day if we have to light that area up relative to what took place. So we got a lot more flexibility. Here's where the problem is. A number of these programs really haven't performed the way they should. And what we have is the street intelligence to be able to bring these people in and get them serviced effectively. Yeah. At least that's what we want to think. Right. So yes, we got to prove it.
Follow up. I would really be interested to follow up with Chief Kraft on the heat map to, you know, when we first started this thing 2 years ago, it was, we wanted to reduce the opportunity for crime and move it away from those neighborhoods. I just want to make sure that we're not moving it to another neighborhood like where it's whack-a-mole. Right. You know, so I'm really pleased to know that you're expanding it to the whole city and not just those zones, because I think we're at risk of reducing the opportunity in the high-risk neighborhoods, but also increasing risk in other neighborhoods. So by you opening up that to the rest of the neighborhoods in the city, I think that's going to put a lot of people at ease.
Right. Excellent observation. One of the things that we would like to be able to do is work hand in glove with the utility side of the house, right? Because as you're retrofitting these lights, we need to be right there doing the lights on the porches. We're finding that impact of the street light and the porch light is exactly what will work out. So being with Chief Kraft 2 weeks ago, we had a chance to speak with Bill. So we understand where he is and what he's doing. We'd like to really use that as our way to define a geo-fenced area to go in and do that kind of work.
That's awesome.
The other point is that so measuring these services, we've gotten to be very good after 2 years. We have people on staff now that do this ARC GIS mapping, and we take this data, and we're data-driven now, because that's what ensures us to get the programs that we've been able to get awarded. So I just received the last month's data from Deputy Chief Rappa. So we're going to start mapping Seaford the way we've mapped Wilmington and Milford. Milford has really been a template for how we've been able to map crime and move the heat maps.
Good, very good.
Thank you.
With that, I'll accept the motion.
Okay. So I'll motion to approve the request of Mr. Charles Kistler from Help Initiative to execute an MOU between the city and the Help Initiative to support implementation and program management of a portfolio of programs as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Mr. Mayor, Orlando Holland, I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Jessica, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Santos?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
I
Appreciate
love
all
that
you
letter.
do.
I love that letter in the alphabet, the I.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
Great to see you guys. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, next we have the construction phase 1 of the Oyster House. Is that Miss Tricia?
Yes, it is.
I can see that, yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As council will remember, at the last meeting we had the Oyster House Park. We brought that forward for with the bids and the funding. Tonight you have before you the contractor services from LAS, Landscape Architectural Services LLC, and that's to do the construction administration of the project. The funding was actually approved at our last meeting. It was the $50,000 for the construction administration. This is the contract documents that we would need to execute with LAS. And it's basically for them to do the approval of the submittals, some on-site contract work, answer the questions, the day-to-day questions, sort of handhold the project a little bit more than staff has the ability to do. So you have that. It's a full packet that you have in your board pack.
Okay, if there are no questions or comments, I'll accept the motion.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is the cost of the owner's representative included in these services or in other services?
When you say the owner's representative, this
Is the architect serving as our representative?
No, we do what I always term a modified construction phase services. We do some of our own inspection. We do some of our own day-to-day management. Tricia's our project manager. They are responding, as Trish stated, they're responding to RFIs, submittals they're doing for us. They will attend monthly meetings when we have progress meetings. I typically chair the meeting. Tracy does the minutes. So we do sort of a hybrid. They don't act completely as the owner's representative. We do that for ourselves.
That's because from a public service standpoint,
Yes, sir.
the administration of a contract is taxing on the building department, and it's kind of, I won't say it's a conflict, but it puts extra pressure when the inspector is out there inspecting the work and he has to act
Sure.
as a representative. So I just wanted some insulation and some, to just be,
It's a good point.
have some idea about how that works.
Contractually, how we do it. Specifically, the reason why we do it with our consultants like this, our city engineer and others, typically if we can do some of the, I'll call it administrative work, that we don't have to pay the professionals to do, we typically tend to save a little bit of money. And we do, our staff, Burley, Bill, Trish, they do like to do project management for themselves, and they're capable, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, if there's no other questions, I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Orlando Holland, I make the motion to approve the contract for construction phase services for phase 1 of the Oyster House Park project with landscape architectural services as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Councilman Henderson, aye. Second.
Thank you. With that, can we have a roll call vote, Jessica?
Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you, Tricia, for leading that project. That's going to be a great thing. All right, next we have the bids for the roof.
Okay, so we did advertise for bids, and council will recall that we have an issue at the Seaford Volunteer Fire Department where stormwater is falling on the roof and getting into our sewer system. So we budgeted that project to renovate that roof area and eliminate that and run the stormwater out on the ground as it needs to be. Our Director of Public Works, Burley Mears, did put that bid package together. We advertised it, and we received no bids. So in speaking with the Director of Public Works, our plan, our fallback, is we feel like the market right now, everyone's just too busy. So our timeline, what we're going to do is wait until after the first of the year in the February-March timeframe when roofers and contractors are putting together their list moving forward. We'll give them a little bit more time on the contract, and we'll re-advertise it in this budget year. So hopefully we can get that project done.
Okay, good. All right, next on the agenda, we have the first reading of the R3 modification.
All right, and I'm going to ask Mike, I know I talked to him a little different this morning, but he volunteered to go through this. I'll just tee it up a little bit. Recently, over the past few months, in talking with the mayor and the vice mayor, they've expressed to staff a concern about modernizing our high-density residential zoning districts. You know, is it too dense? Are there things we can do? And I'll say this, over the last 3 to 5 years, Council will recall we've modernized some of our requirements in our commercial zones where we require brick frontages that we did not previously require. So the building official and I went through the existing R3 zoning ordinance, and what Mike's going to present tonight is recommendations that we came to try to increase site amenities, reduce the density of these properties, and we did run this through the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they recommended approval of this. But with that, Mike, if you would run through the proposed changes.
Sure thing. So it's revisions to Division 3 as the high density residential district, section 15-26 of the area and bulk requirements of that section relating to units per acre, setbacks, site coverage, habitable floor area, exterior materials, safety improvements, and site amenities. In the next slides, I get into the proposed changes. So I've kind of laid it out, showing the current zoning or the current code and then the proposed. So site area, currently it's a 1 acre minimum, and we're proposing it to be 4 acres minimum for the site area. Dwelling units per acre, that currently is 14. We're proposing 10, bringing that down, the density down. And the dwelling units per building, currently we allow 18. We're looking to bring that down to 12. Building setback line, this is from the property line, currently is 25 feet. We're looking to take that to 50 feet, more green space, basically, more parking off-site, off-street. Site coverage, proposed paved area shall not exceed 15% of the site area. That's a new section. We don't really get into that in the current zoning code for R3. Side yard lines currently is 20 feet to the property line. We're proposing 50 feet. And a building separation, proposed the minimum distance from the side of any garden apartment or from the side of any end unit of a townhouse group to the site, on the site shall be 25 feet between the ends of each building. That's helpful for fire, you know, and all that safety stuff. Rear yards currently is 20 feet. We're proposing 50 feet. Moving on, so habitable floor area for the units currently is 450 square feet minimum for a unit less than 2 bedrooms. We're proposing 1,000 square feet minimum for the same 2-bedroom unit. Currently, there's a 600 square foot minimum for units more than 2 bedrooms, and the new proposal is 1,200 square foot minimum for units more than 2 bedrooms. Exterior materials, we have this currently where only the fronts of these buildings are 30% of a masonry finish. This proposal is that all exterior walls must be finished with the following architectural masonry units, excluding some concrete block and cinder block, natural stone, precast concrete with the approval of the city, brick, stucco, glass material, steel, aluminum, or their equivalent. So we're bringing up the looks of these buildings as well. And then we're proposing site amenities for every development that must include a community center for use by the residents with a minimum square footage of 1,200 square feet, a fenced play area and neighborhood park area with play equipment for the use of the residents, a minimum of 3 acres in area, walking trails, site fixtures, benches, trash cans, and other features. We're adding a safety and security for community-wide camera system serving all common and parking areas of the site to be required, and fencing of the entire site perimeter to be required. That's all the proposed changes for this first reading.
So if I could make just a couple more comments about this.
Yep.
Currently, in the discussion, as the process goes for code changes, we would do 2 readings. If council desires to move this forward, we could bring this back to the next council meeting. And then what would happen if it were approved by council after the second reading, we would advertise it for 30 days and it would become effective. So as of tonight, he's reviewed what projects are in the pipeline. There's no one that would be affected who's in the approval process. Is that correct, Mike?
Not really, no.
Okay. So no one's teetering on the edge or has plowed me into the plan, and then we kind of change the direction on it. So one of the things councils have considered in the past with code changes, and these are sweeping, some of these are big. Council can delay the adoption so we can send it out to the development community. We've done that. Just wanted to reassure council that really more kind of in that pipeline. This may catch a few developers by surprise, but certainly if you'd like to understand or delay the implementation of this for a period of 90 days, something like that, we can certainly get a letter out from the building official to the development community, making them aware, so on and so
But the
forth.
process also is it's 2 readings, so that's 2 weeks from now, we'd have a second reading, then it's posted for 30 days, correct?
Yes, sir.
So it's still something not immediate.
Yeah, so then anyone that would come forth after that, they'd be given these requirements, they would develop within that.
Right.
Additionally, I'll say this, our ordinances are not deemed to comply, so projects that are grandfathered will continue. Now, if they redevelop the site, they'll have to fall underneath this new ordinance provision. So over time, this, it's going to take some time, but when projects redevelop, they'll have to meet the new code.
Okay, are there any questions on this first reading? Mr. Henderson?
Mike, could you go back to the slide, previous slide? Okay, so dwelling units per acre is currently 14, it's going to propose to 10. What's the current density for R2?
It's 9 to 10, depending, it's 4,500 square foot minimum lot. So 43,560 is an acre, so it's slightly below 10.
So that the delta between R3 and R2 is going to be
It almost disappears.
really close.
It almost disappears, yeah.
So do you anticipate seeing a lowering of the density of R2?
We could go that direction.
Because they're so close.
We could go that direction. Then to follow with that, then what you fall into is R1, because that's at the,
Right.
4 to 5 dwelling units per acre. What we're finding specifically with these developments, okay, and we were going to bring some pictures, but we didn't want to pick on any development, okay, but what you're finding in these things, because you have to have so much on a site, stormwater management gets so large, all that kind of stuff, all the available space when you get into these type developments is consumed. There's no open space left. So when you're talking about single-family dwellings or duplexes by design, they all have side yards, rear yards, front yards. So the density is not as, I want to use the right words here, it's not as evident. And we don't typically find, in these projects, it's just very, very dense. If you ride through some of these projects, every available inch is taken up with something.
Right.
Typically, that's not in R1 and R2 projects. But we can certainly, if it's council's desire for us to take a look at that and bring back some suggestions and work with council, we can certainly look at reducing that density as well.
Yeah, I'm sure that you all did some mathematical equations so that when you said you were going from 18 units per building to 12 units per building, and then you had your minimum square footage for that that would, pardon me, would translate to those 14 or the 10 units per acre.
It wasn't that scientific. What we're seeing, and we're seeing a lot of different things presented, we're not really seeing a lot of buildings with 18 units in them anymore. You know, they do different designs. The 10, when we looked at it, we didn't want to go below R2, because that doesn't seem.
Absolutely not.
Right, so that was kind of, yeah, that was kind of
not high
the speed
density
limit.
anymore.
Pretty much,
Right.
pretty much.
Somewhere between medium and low.
And
So-
again, these projects, if they're done right, they can provide affordable housing. And there definitely is a place in a tight urban setting for projects that are done correctly and fit harmoniously in with the zoning around them. So we want to have a range of housing types. It's just, this code had not been modernized since all the new stormwater regulations, all the new DEL-DOT requirements, the sundry of things that we're dealing with now that we weren't in the 80s.
MS4.
Thank you,
Right.
yes, sir.
Okay, are there any other questions on this? Yes, sir.
It gets a question about the process tying in there. Mr. Mayor, you said, or Mr. Manager, you said it wasn't that scientific. When we do these things, do we ever look at other cities, towns that are at least somewhat similar to us to see if, hey, they're organized in a similar fashion?
We do. We attend, occasionally we'll look at what Milford's doing, some of our peer sister communities. In this case, we did not pull out their zone. Some of their zoning ordinances are so vastly different from ours. I will say our zoning ordinance is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We were just looking to kind of massage those numbers down.
Yep.
And the idea behind the cameras, we had a lot of conversations over the last couple years with our chief of police, and some of the existing housing communities have redeveloped and put them in, and then they've done some interconnection and sharing of data. So that's a trend that's going on.
Sure.
But yeah, we did not pull out any of our peers. We certainly, if you would like, we can certainly go through that exercise and bring that information back.
Not necessarily, I'm just always trying to learn about the process and how we go about this, just from my own edification.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I have one.
Yes.
So the current code that we have and the implementation of the new code, and I can see there's quite a bit of difference. Like, what are you seeing currently that would cause the need for the change? And I understand I'm not calling out specific projects or builders. Like, what brought this on? Like, what's the reasons behind the adjustment to the code?
And again, I've gotten some input from the mayor and the vice mayor, but on a practical standpoint, what we're seeing is that sites are so filled up with stormwater ponds. They're trying to put all these things, and there really is, when you really look at the changes we've been through over the last 6 or 8 months, there's so much demand for our parks, as an example, Nutter Park, Optimus Park, because a lot of these complexes and larger developments have no open space. So they're going to our parks and they're congregating on other people's property. So what we talked about was, shouldn't some of these communities be more accessible to their residents? Shouldn't those amenities be there? When you look at all the things we've been through with our Parks and Recreation Department, City of Seaford has been named a silver community because of our walking trails and that kind of stuff. So the Economic Development Director and I have had some conversations about, should we look at some of these areas and tie them together with walking trails? Do they need to be a traditional sidewalk? No, they don't. But can we interconnect community facilities like the library, like the schools, with some of these larger developments, that people can walk and bike to those and not necessarily have to get into their car to reduce traffic? So, we're looking at the multimodal things that we can do to make our community much more interconnected.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm trying to, Councilman Santos here, I'm trying to visualize this with, for example, Bel Air, how they came and they tried to maximize the space and they got to 132 units. How many units do you think they would be able to put in?
Interestingly enough, while they were talking, I did some math in my head. It was 14 units, so they could have done 140. They were proposing 116 in their revamped, but the initial run-through was 132. So just on that, if you're just staring at the density, it would not have affected their original proposal or their revamped proposal. We would not have cost them additional units. Does that make sense? We didn't harm them. You certainly can. Might want to help me here.
With a change to this density, that plot could accommodate 140 units. In its current capacity, it could accommodate 156 units. Now, had we approved the zoning to R3 from R1, they had a use by right to put 156 of those units on there, even though they said they were only going to do 132.
Or 118.
The developer could sell the property, and then someone else could come and say, I'm putting 156 on there. So in an effort to, I think from the 6 years that I've been here, I think we've been trying to lower density to make Seaford more livable instead of being more crowded.
Right.
So that's my take on it, and this will go further towards opening up and giving people room.
Yes.
Maybe to answer just a little bit further, the density would not have affected that developer's plan that came. But when you start to look at the 3-acre playground, he didn't have that on his site plan, as I saw. I'm not sure if he factored in cameras or exterior perimeter fencing. So some of those amenities, the finished material, I just glanced at it. He had a little bit of stonework, it looked like. The rest, I think, was vinyl siding in the rendering. So he would have had to do some other things there. Yeah, this is going to affect the development.
Yeah, I wasn't really focused too much on the density as far as the side yard lines and the rear yards. If this was to go into effect, would he still be able to, if he would have zoned it from R1 to R3, how many units would, or how would it
How would it look?
like?
How would it affect it? Yeah, I'd like to answer your question directly, but that really would take an engineer to redesign it for you and show you, hey, because you're going to have a lot more green space around the perimeter, because now those setbacks are doubled. That's the way it laid out. So you're not going to have side yard lines 25 feet away. You're going to have them 50 feet away. You're going to have these other, the trails and walking paths running through the site, taking advantage of natural features. If you have a branch or something like that, a water feature along your property line, you're going to want to take advantage of that with the walking trail, biking trail. So there's going to be a lot more thought into the amenities the site has coming in, and how do you maybe cluster develop the site. That's the way I would look at doing it. I would try to put all my units in one area accessible to the city, and then some of the other areas I'd leave open space for the playground, the walking trails, so that I don't disturb as much of the site as I otherwise would have. I want to leave some areas natural and for people to gather.
So going back to what Councilman Henderson said, it would look very similar to an R2 zone development, but with more amenities?
Well, it would be similar in density, I believe is the point that Councilman Henderson made. But the style of buildings that are approved are vastly different.
Right.
In this zone, you can go 3 stories, and they can be 12 units together. In an R2, it's duplexes is the maximum that you can do. So you can only have, 2 units sharing a common wall. And traditionally, we don't see them over 2 stories. You can have a 3-story duplex, but traditionally, we don't. Have you ever permitted one, Mike?
No.
So traditionally, it's lower, looks more residential. You can pick it out. That's a duplex. This is more apartment buildings, condominiums that are in longer rows. So it'll look vastly different.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Makes
that
sense.
answers my question.
Yep. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have
Yep.
one more question. I guess Mike or Charles, please. Councilman King, taking the new parameters under consideration, I know typically when you go in and you look at these builds, they go in and they just tear everything down, strip everything down. The property on, let's say, alternate 13, trees been there 100 years. They went in, they take everything out, and then they come in and do their build. With that much footage left, has the city thought about creating any expectations around green space?
Yes.
I mean, without creating a lot of additional work, but is any thought going in there or language?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's really what this is all about. And one thing I would say is that, you know, we have a three-step process: sketch plan, preliminary plan, final plan. And in a case like what you bring up, Councilman King, if you have an amenity on site, during that sketch plan, when Mike brings that forward, that is a time for council to interject themselves and say, and talk with the developer, hey, can you save those trees or create that walk along that riparian buffer? So those are times when, because you guys are the experts on your community, these developers may be coming from without, and they need that input from you, and that's what it's designed to do, is get your input. How can we fit this into our community? And I do think the millennial marketplace that we're in now, they have different needs, different wants. You know, they do try to live in apartments. They do want to be close to things. You know, they want to be part of a community, volunteer, things like that. So how do we help the developers develop their style of lifestyle housing within our zoning ordinance that works for Seaford? That's what we've tried to do.
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, so this is a first reading. This will come back through next council meeting, okay? All right.
Thank you.
All right, next
Thank
we'll
you,
go
Mike.
to the partnerships with Parks Resource Office and State Division. Whew. Tricia's going to
evening.
walk us through it.
Yep. And you have in your packet 2 resolutions for the ORPT grant, and that is the third division through DENREC, which is the Outdoor Recreation Parks and Trails Grant Program. The city has actually applied for 2 grants. We submitted our grant last week. One being for the sports complex for sidewalk amenities and fencing, security fencing out there, and then the other grant being for funding to help with our Oyster House Park project. So about $80,000 ask for ORPT for the Oyster House, about $20,000 for the ask for the sports complex. Both of those are a matching grant. But as part of the grant application, we have to have a resolution from the governing body that says that we will maintain the integrity of the outdoor recreation program, and the open space, those type of things. So.
Okay. Are there any questions in reference to this resolution? If not, I'll accept the motion. And we'll need 2 motions.
We'll just do one at a time.
Let's do one at a time.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the resolution in support of a partnership with the Parks Resource Office, State Division of Parks and Recreation under the ORPT grant program for construction of Phase 1 for the Oyster House Park project as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Councilman McCoy, I'll second.
All right, thank you. Jessica, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. And then we'll need a motion on the connection with the state for the sports complex.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion to approve the resolution in support of partnership with Parks Resource Office, State Division of Parks and Recreation under Outdoor Recreation and Parks and Trails Grant Program for installation of fencing and sidewalk at the Seaford Sports Complex as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Councilman McCoy, I will second.
Okay, we have a second. All right, we're moving. All right, can we have a roll call vote tonight?
Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
Thank you, and
It's
we'll let you
unanimous.
know.
You can almost tell it's 9 o'clock. you
Yeah,
know?
right?
It's like you could
We'll
just-
keep
just
you
all-
guys posted as to what we find out, whether we are awarded the funds.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Great job, Tricia. Okay, do we have any old business?
Yes, sir, we
Coming
do have
up.
one. Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, Tracy.
Okay. I'm here tonight. We were asked to do some follow-up regarding voter registration. Before we get into that, I did want to share just a couple things that has come up since the last meeting that I just wanted to point out. One of them was, you have probably seen Representative Shoup. He put an article out September the 12th. And it basically talked about how when he first registered, he registered as a Democrat, and about 6 years ago, I think it was, he changed to Republican, and he actually got an absentee ballot for this last primary election for a Democratic Party. And he did say, he did quote in this article that I read that every time that anyone, he's speaking of candidates, any candidate does a large mailing using the state's list, they get about 10% back as undeliverable. And then he does reference about the House Bill 346 that we have discussed earlier, that's going through the process as vote by mail. And he also quoted, to quote him in the article, he spoke about Commissioner Albanese and how Mr. Albanese stated that his agency has received about 55,000 undeliverable ballot applications of the nearly 544,000 that have been distributed to Delaware voters. So just like a little thing to show that, as I've stated in previous meetings I've been to, there's no way that's going to be 100%, error-free. People don't update their addresses, people move and don't do the correct thing. So that's one thing I wanted to point out. Another thing was we just recently had our primary election here in the state of Delaware, and if you go to their website, they do have this up here that shows the statistics of their website. So it does break it down by offices that are up, but the main thing that I wanted to point out was on the right-hand side, which is the voter turnout of the primary election. And this year there is a lot of controversial issues going on, so speaking with many people, this was actually a higher turnout, so they only had 32.26% of people voting. And so if you break that down by numbers, 177,547 people voted in the state of Delaware out of 550,288 registered voters. So that's just to show it's just not us that has voter turnout. As I stated in the past, there's other municipalities I speak with that see that as well, but as you can see here, the state sees that as well in their elections. So at the last meeting, we had a discussion about maintaining non-resident property owners, and Councilman Henderson tasked city staff with reaching out to our city solicitor to see if that would be a thing that we could keep if we transitioned over to the state's database. So we received an email back from City Solicitor Griffith, and it states as followed. The city may absolutely amend its charter to adopt the state voter registration system while keeping non-resident property owners' rights. Realistically, the only two areas where amending the city's charter would be in violation of state law would be, number one, its interpretation of marriage or other civil relationships, or number two, the definition and punishment of a penalty. And he goes on to state the statutory provision reads, in relevant part, that the city may amend its charter so as to have and assume all powers which under the Constitution of the state it would be content for the General Assembly to grant by specific enumeration and which are not denied by statute. This grant of power does not include the power to enact private or civil law governing civil relationship except as an incident to an exercise of an independent municipal power, nor does it include power to define and provide for the punishment of a felony. So, I don't know if anybody else has any questions, but that was what we were tasked with.
All right, so again, this was the task to ask Tracy to look at moving towards the state or staying on our current voter registration. So are there any questions? Councilman King?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Tracy, as far as the state of voter registration database, so if I live outside of the city, let's say I don't live in the state of Delaware, let's just say hypothetically I live in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
How would an out-of-state voter can't register through the state of Delaware, right? So would there be a secondary, would you still use some type of book of registries in order to capture your out-of-state voters?
So I'm assuming.
So would you use both?
So I'm assuming you're giving the example that we go to the state database and maintain our own, have non-resident property owners, correct?
Right.
So we have discussed in previous meetings that that was what we would have to do. City staff would have to maintain a separate database. So that can get a little tricky when we go to advertise that. You know, we would have to, you know, really spell it out in a way to be understandable that if you reside in the city, you would register through the state. If you own property but don't reside, you would register through us. So to answer your question, yes, the way that we see it as city staff is that we would have to maintain our own database specific to non-resident property owners only.
And if you had to guesstimate a percent of non-city resident voters, what would that percent be?
In the last election, there was about 65 to 70. That number has grown since because in order to be able to vote, you have to own the property 6 months preceding the date of the election. So we did have some that weren't eligible that had registered at the last election. So I would guess it's nearing 100 now of voters.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? So if not, we need to give direction so the city can plan this. If we go to the state, that would be a charter change. If we stay the same, then there's no change, and we would continue on with the online or trying to figure out more ways to reach people that need it.
And just to also add, as we have also discussed in previous meeting, like the mayor just said, it does require a charter change. So we're anticipating this would be for the 2022 election due to the time that a charter change occurs if we were to go that route.
Right. This is also something that if we did change, you would not come back through and change it back the other way real quick. This is a lot of work to do this, so it's
Yes.
something going forward. So you just,
Because then we would have to figure out what we would do with our, you know, would everyone have to re-register that were already previously registered? That would be a very slippery slope.
Right. But either way, we need to make a decision so the city staff knows which way to go. If we're going to do a charter change, we need to start preparing that and get that to Danny and to Brian. So with that, I will accept a motion.
Mr. Mayor, Dan Henderson, Councilman speaking. I make a motion to request staff to prepare a charter change to transition to the state voter registration database for the April 2022 municipal election.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Councilman King, I'll second that motion.
Great.
I had one question about
Yes,
that
sir.
motion. Do we have to add in the motion that we are also going to be using our own book, or it doesn't have to be added? That's in the second portion. Okay. All right. That's it.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Great. All right. And then we'll need a motion for non-resident property owners, correct? So that we have that as our own direction that we'll do that, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr.
So I'll
Mayor?
accept the motion.
Councilman Henderson again. I make a motion to continue to use the Book of Registered Voters outlined in the current city charter and provide additional registration.
Those were our two
Those
options.
were, yeah, those are the.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
we just need to.
I'm sorry.
I think what'll
No,
happen is.
I get you.
Okay,
I need to
sorry.
restructure my motion.
Yes.
I make a motion to maintain a separate book of registered voters for non-resident property owners.
Perfect, yes. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we have a roll call vote, please,
Councilman
Jessica?
Santos?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. So we'll start drafting that document together, and we'll get it up to the state, and we will get that going. Thanks, Tracy, for all your work on that. Appreciate it. Great job. All right, reminders of meetings?
We have one. There's a SCAT meeting scheduled for October 7th at the Seaford Volunteer Fire Department. Banquet Hall starts at 6 p.m., so if you intend on going, please get your RSVP back. The president of SCAT wants to see you there if he can
Absolutely.
see you there in person. So
Amen. We're sponsoring it, so it's always good to
have a big showing.
have a good showing. That's correct. All right, we're going to go to committee reports. We'll start with Councilman Santos with Administration IT.
Councilman Santos, thank you, Mayor. So as far as meetings goes, they made final inspection of the police department garage renovations with the contractor and project architect. They attended the quarterly golf course meetings. They met with Atkins Management, our consultant that operates Hooper's Landing. Play is up dramatically for the first 2.5 months of the fiscal year, so we're in the green. They attended the planning and zoning meetings to present the proposed changes from R3 changes to the zoning ordinance. They changed, these changes would revise the dwelling units permitted per acre and other aspects of the development. As far as the IT report goes, they were working on the police department. They completed the speaker and mic system for the cell areas. And let's see. I'm moving on to the administration report. They were working on the city's annual audit. They're corresponding with auditors to provide requested reports and documentation. And that concludes my report, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilman Henderson gave his report. Is there anything you wish to add, or did you get everything you needed covered?
No, sir, I'll rest.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, Code, Parks and Rec. Councilman
Thank you,
Holland.
Mr. Mayor. Also, Parks and Recs. Youth clinics have been extended through October, and musical lighting is working with electric department regarding outages at the football field. And 2 special event permits applications have been reviewed and approved. And Bobby has begun training to become a certified playground safety inspector. And bids are being advertised for 2 zero-turn mowers. And on the code side, they issued 285 permits so far. The Montessori School is open, and the administration office and mill distribution building is complete. And Needs Park Business Center site work is to start this week. And that concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much. Next, we have Electric. Councilman McCoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few highlights. The report's been submitted in its entirety. For the crew, they terminated the secondary wires in the transformer at the Montessori School, replaced the broken street light pole in front of Grottos, checked the lights at the football field for the Parks and Rec Department. Greg Brook started the supervisor training class. Greg and Nick Smart took some of the other tests for lineman training. As far as the director is concerned, he met with the contractor at Wawa, did the Zoom meeting for the annual DMEC meeting, had a staff meeting. Over the next few weeks, the goal is to do monthly substation checks, finish trimming trees in Williams Pond Park, continue working in Muirfield 2 as they build more units in Phase 1, and get the estimate and schedule the directional drilling at Wawa. Again, it's a few of the highlights, but the report's been submitted in its entirety.
Okay, thank you very much. And finally, we have Councilman King, Public Works, Wastewater Treatment.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My report has been submitted in its entirety. I'm just going to hit some of the high-value activity bullet points. Before I get into that, I do want to allude to the fact that the Public Works is still running with one person down. So that team is working extremely hard because we haven't had an impact to service at all. So those men and women out there, they're getting it done, even being short-staffed. Some of the things that they're doing, Route 13 water main extension is complete. As we talked to tonight, we alluded to, there was no bids for the fire department roof. They are repairing cleanouts. The new lift station project is ongoing. Force main and pump station installation for the Unified Seaford District is ongoing. Manor House lift station pump is out for rebuild. I'm going to turn over to the wastewater treatment facility. Plant performance remains good, and they do have compost for sale by appointment. And some of the activities coming up over the next 2 weeks, street paving bids are going out, and they're continuing to replace and work on fire hydrants. And with that, that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much. I do want to thank all the city staff. It's been an incredibly busy couple of weeks. which seems to be what I say every meeting, but it continues, and, yes, sir.
Can I add one thing? I was remiss in not putting it in the agenda, but I will be on vacation next week, and Burley Mears, Director of Public Works, will be acting city manager next week.
Was that approved, or is this a vote thing? What are we doing here?
I hope so.
Wow.
Based on findings of fact.
Wow.
Yes, yes.
Huh? What a time to ask, right?
Yes, so
Good
Burley
for
will be
you.
in charge.
Good for you. Okay, great. We'll support him. Okay. With that, I'll accept a motion to
Councilman
adjourn.
McCoy, so moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Councilman King, I second it.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, case unanimous. Thank you.